let's move on. Okay, this one really intrigued me because I talk to a lot of HR professionals and they tell me that talent acquisition and talent retention will be the key differentiator for companies in 2 to 5 years and going forward. So I think about this issue, about promotion, about talent, not just acquisition, but retention. And we can certainly add acquisition as well. But why do, or what's the significance of over a third of the respondents believing ethics does not help advancement, and how can we start to change this?
Well, I believe that this flows from the message that's coming from above. This goes back to the leader. And it says ethics, it should say being ethical. So I'm going to take that on me that that's not the correct spelling there. I believe that something's happened within an organization. Something's happened within society. And it's the message that has been learned is that results are incredibly important, and ethics can be marginalized to get the results. People learn from experience. You know, it's kind of like a dog. If you have a dog and I kick your dog every time I come to your house, how many times do I have to come to your house before I'm going to walk in the door and when the dog sees me, the dog's going the other way. You know, the dog's learned, hey, every time Sam shows up, he's going to kick me. Well, if my advancement is tied to a number and not tied to an ethical decision, if my advancement is tied to strictly the bottom line and not also in consideration of how I'm fitting into the culture, living the culture, modeling the values, leading other people, helping other people be successful, if all those other aspects aren't brought into the conversation about advancement, then that's why you have a number like this, Tom.
But this number, there's ways to fix this problem. And I'll just start off by saying you can redesign advancement criteria to take into account a wide variety of cultural issues, of ethical issues, of the values of your corporation. Are these soft skills? Absolutely. Can they be measured? Absolutely. And so you start off by making them a part of your annual review discussion. It doesn't mean it may not mean it's number one on the list of your annual review, but you can make it a part of a discretionary bonus at the end of the year. And you begin to see a pattern of employees. And when you get to the situation where you are considering advancement from someone from a line to a middle manager or middle manager to a senior manager, you begin to have a record and accounting of their values, of their ethical behavior, of how they have helped promote the culture within your organization. So I think advancement criteria can be redesigned to take into account the ethics as a career advantage. And let me tie this back to talent acquisition and talent retention. I wrote a blog post last week that I said your ethical values of your company start in the hiring process. And I don't mean when you sign on, I mean the first time you interview someone, because you can be starting to talk about the values of your organization and make it a part of those discussions up to hiring. And then you have hopefully middle managers and senior managers are going to be discussing it forward. So you can have a continuing conversation on this as a part of your talent acquisition and talent retention. This is exactly where you want to focus for promoting those persons that have the ethical values that you want to embody in your organization, the values you want to model, and are helping to build the culture. Because I think the long-term risks, if you ignore this, can literally be catastrophic. Number one, you won't hire people who are committed to the values of your organization. And two, even if you do hire them, as you said, Sam, if you kick them so many times, they are not seeing this as an advancement strategy. They're not going to model that going forward. So you're going to promote those who could put your company at real risk. Any real thoughts on that one way or the other?
Wow, that's a lot. Yes, I agree. I think you wanted more than that. Um, everything you described is so true, Tom. It's a choice, though. That's the choice that a leader has to make. And on the surface, many times it doesn't seem like it's the easy choice, and so leaders put it off. Now, I hate annual reviews. I know they're necessary, but I hate annual reviews because I fall under the belief that annual reviews all they do is tick off good people. And so to me, there needs to be a continuous feedback. There needs to be continuous conversation. And how we're living these values needs to be something that's always open for conversation. To me, the annual review is almost a time to be talking about goals for the upcoming year. What is it you want to achieve? How do you want to grow individually and personally? How can I support you as your leader? But regardless of how it's handled or where it's handled, Tom, if it's made a priority, look, if you're the leader and you make something a priority, then it's a priority for everyone. If you don't make it a priority, it's a priority for no one. It's that simple. So if living the values and making ethical decisions are a priority, not just in words, but in deeds, then they become a priority.
Sam, in our next slide, we're going to take up, with some luck, the impact on third parties. We're going to start with customers and trust. Then I'm going to take these same areas of inquiry and move them to third parties on the vendor side. But let's start with customers, because once again, you've been in a commercially facing business where you had customers you were selling a product to. So let's start with what happens to employees under pressure, and what does that do to the connection between employee ethics and customer trust of a product company?
Well, let's say you have a manufacturing business, and I used to own a company that manufactured windows and doors. I walk out into the plant, and one of the individuals, it could be someone on the production floor, it could be a production worker, it could be a supervisor, it could be the plant manager. It really doesn't matter. They come up to me and they say, "We got a problem. There's a problem with this window." "What's the problem?" "Well, the face of it is scratched, and Joe said I should just wrap it up, but I just don't think I should." I says, "Oh, no one's going to see that. Don't worry about that. Wrap it up and let's get it out of here." Well, now what I just did in that situation is I said that, lie, cheat, and steal if that's what it takes. Now I didn't just say that about the windows, though. I said it about all human interaction. That means as the CEO of the company, is lie, cheat, and steal. If I can cheat you out of some money in your paycheck, I just might do that. Where's the trust? The trust is totally gone. It's shot. It's out the window. But what happens when I tell that individual, I see that there's a scratch, and I look and I go, "Well, that scratch is kind of a minor scratch, but you know what? That's got your name on it, and it's got my name on it, and that's not going to leave here like that. So whatever you need to do to make it right, just make it right." And first of all, now the whole game changes. The whole game changes. But it goes deeper than that. The idea is pretty soon this individual doesn't need to ask me what he or she should do. They know around here, it doesn't leave here unless it's right. And they just make the decision, they fix it, and they move on. Now think about that. If the decision is made in line, look at the time that's being saved. Look at my time that's being saved. And it's being done right, and it's being corrected. Now, the other thing is that you call the customer and you go, "We were going to deliver those windows tomorrow, but we found one window that it didn't meet our standards, and we want to remake that window for you. Can we push the delivery back a day?" What's that homeowner or what's the client going to say in it? "Oh, wow, thank you." It's like they realize that you stand for something. So now trust is high. But you go out and install a product or deliver or perform a service, and you deliver substandard quality in the service or the product. then they're going to start looking for things. And once they start looking for things, well, why are they looking? Well, there's a lack of trust.
Sam, do you have any examples you could share from us where ethical shortcuts destroyed trust or at least damaged it? And before you answer that, one of the most prescient things I heard once about customers, third parties as customers, as opposed to third parties, vendors from the supply chain, is if you lose a customer, that's not a bottom line issue, that's a top line issue. That's a sale you didn't make, and it's a sale you may never make. And you have taken money out of the corporation. The bottom line is a very different accounting. But once you lose the customer trust, once you lose that customer sale, that's income that you're never going to get. And so, in his mind, when he was explaining to me, customers are even more important to demonstrate an ethical value and a culture of compliance. So with that intro, any examples you could share with us?
Well, I see more examples, luckily, of where a lot of times the negative situations, you're not totally aware of those. And the positives where they come through without even being asked. It's like, I don't want to overuse them, but Bombas socks, if a lot of people love Bombas socks, they make a great product, and they'll take anything back for any reason. If your dog chews up one of your socks, they'll send you a new pair of socks because they're lifetime guarantee. I had a situation where I'd ordered a bunch of one color and I decided I needed to mix the two colors, and they said, we'll send you the other color. And I said, well, where do I send these back to? And they said, don't even worry about it. He says, either enjoy them yourself or donate them someplace where someone else can enjoy them. Well, when I see an organization that acts like that, all of a sudden my defenses totally go down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I trust them. I don't worry about buying from them. I'll engage in them in numerous ways. I'll try new products they come out with. It just builds on itself. I don't have to worry about them because I know they got my back. And it's the same way in a culture with people. If I know you have my back, Tom, which I know, then I don't worry about you. I just move forward with full speed. And so I know there are situations where ethical shortcuts are destroying trust, where people are trying to cover things up, but the places I see where people and organizations step up many times without being asked, and that's the key, Tom. I've had personal situations where something wasn't right. And I bought a sport coat recently, and he said, and it wasn't ready on time. He says, let me make you a couple of shirts. He apologized profusely. The jacket wasn't ready on time. He says, I'll make you a couple of shirts. The jacket came in and there was a problem with it. They had to send it out and have it done again. Finally, it came back and he said, look, this experience didn't go the way it should have gone. If I rebate you 50%, would you be happy? Would you be willing to come back? I didn't ask for a thing. I told him when he said, let me make you a couple of shirts, I said, I'm not asking you to do that. He says, I know you're not asking me. He says, I'm offering. That's a different approach. Be ethical on the front end. Do it right. Make it right. And then things are going to turn out right.
Someone would like to flip this now to what I mentioned, third parties who may work with or for your company through your vendors, through your supply chain. And I know you've got some great examples of the ethical values of companies you do business with who are suppliers and the importance of having those values shared by those you do business with who are not customers. Can you talk to us about the importance of trust, ethical values, and culture when dealing with your vendors?
I believe that everything that we're talking about today, Tom, is in play 360 degrees. So whether it's your employees, whether it's your clients, your customers, whether it's the community in which you live and operate, whether it's your vendors, the same values need to be in place. Respect is respect. I can't show respect for customers and disrespect vendors and say that I'm living my life with respect. That's not truth in that situation. I will tell you, years ago in the window business, we always discounted our bills. We always paid the bills when they came in immediately. We didn't wait to the last minute. And we knew that our suppliers had cash flow just like we had cash flow that we had to monitor. And so my feeling was, and I was in business at that time with my father-in-law, and his feeling was you took care of your people. You took care of your employees. You took care of your customers. You took care of your vendors. There's a relationship in place. And so we always pay bills immediately. And my wife and I do the same thing around here. She, when we got married, she was taking on, she's an accountant. She took on the responsibility to pay the bills. She says, it's not due till the end of the month. I says, I know, but I want them to know that when we get a bill, that it's going to get paid. I'd rather pay it early. I'm willing to forego a little interest in the bank, but I want them to know we've got their back. Well, in the window business, there was a time where there was a shortage of glass. Now you think about that. How do you make a window without glass? It's not a good window. And so people were literally shutting down manufacturing facilities because they couldn't get the glass they needed to make the windows. We never ran out of glass. We weren't the biggest customer, but we never ran out of glass. Now the truck might have showed up in the morning of the day that we were pulling the last pallet of glass out of inventory, but we never ran out of glass. And I believe that was because they valued us so much because we valued them and what they did. And we expressed that by hopefully being easy to deal with, but making sure they got paid quickly, promptly, before it was even due. And so relationship with your suppliers is critical. We've heard over the last few years, supply chain problems. Well, some of those problems are very real, but some of those problems can be avoided because guess what? Someone decides who that next box of screws is getting sent to. And if you need those screws for production and they're sent to someone else, you're in a world of hurt. But someone's making that decision. And when you take care of your people, I guarantee you they're going to take care of you.